Good afternoon, and welcome to another wonking version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your wanton and woebegone host, Voice of Doom. Okay. I'm going to do a diatribe today on a rather boring subject that most people never really gave much thought to up until the recent past. And it's interesting because what I've noticed is with the communications revolution and the TDS is very helpful. Your average American is more up on the nooks and crannies and rather arcane parts of the government that we never really gave much thought to before. And I can name a lot of subjects. I was railing about the deficit and the debt in 1992. I had every reason to believe that we were going bankrupt. And I talked to some people that turned out to be very smart, and they said, no, it'll happen in about 25 years. And I didn't think so. I thought it would happen soon, but I'll tell you why it didn't happen and why we're in the pickle we're in, and talk more about how the wonky little details of international interaction have been brought to light, because since the D's are having a cow over everything Orangey does, then people look at it. Nobody cared about trade deficits 5 years ago. Nobody cared about tariffs. They didn't even know what it meant. Now all of a sudden all these people are on the street saying, no tariffs, and it's going to be the end of everything. Well, we're in a bad spot now, and I'll tell you why. And I believe in the tariffs because it's just not fair. You have products that are made in various countries, and if it's a good product, they should be able to sell it wherever they want to. If they want to ship thousands of cars from Japan, which people buy, which they did, then more power to them. I own a Honda Civic, and it's a very good car. And whether it was made in the United States or wherever it was made, it's a good buy. And I've had all kinds of cars. I've had Fords, I've had Chryslers, I've had Plymouths, I've had everything. I've never had a Maserati or a Ferrari, but they don't run well, so I really wouldn't want the responsibility. Let's not get off the subject. Okay, tariffs. Okay. I knew back when I was in high school, back in the 70s, that things were going to be going bad for American workers because they kept wanting more and more and more. And they were going to price themselves out of the market by demanding more and more. Pay, benefits, pension, blah, 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 blah. People were constantly striking in the 70s at auto plants and at all kinds of high-tech and manufacturing establishments. They wanted more money. They wanted $25 an hour back in 1976. And they usually got it. But inflation was going to rear its ugly head. if you continually raise the pay of the person who produces the product. And I'm not saying that we should, exploit labor, but sometimes the labor exploits the man. So Clinton came along, and although he has his foibles and although he's corrupt to the bone, he did have a firm grasp on domestic and foreign policy. And he knew that things were going to get more expensive if you keep paying people more. Especially if you pay auto workers more, it's going to cost more to buy a car. So he established the GATT, General Agreements of Tariffs and Taxes or whatever, global, and NAFTA, which was the North American Free Trade Agreement. Now these were trade agreements that said, we'll trade with you and you trade with us and there's no tariffs. And then he did the same thing with GATT. That's what created the Walmart empire when they realized that they could buy stuff from China that was cheaper. So if you go into Walmart and you want a toaster, you can buy one for $20. And then when you're in Walmart, you do your grocery shopping and you buy other things at market price, but whatever. He knew that by us importing most of our crap from China, that it would keep inflation down. It's very simple. If you see it happening. Also noticed in the 90s that they started using credit cards in the government expenditures. They had government credit cards. I worked for a bookstore that sold thousands of books, hundreds of thousands of books to the government on government contracts, and they were using credit cards. And I thought, this is strange. Why don't they just pay for what they want? And I realized that the government's going to go more and more and more into debt. Now the rest is history. You all see it. But let's talk about tariffs. Okay. Sooner or later, someone like Orangey comes along and says, why do we have to pay 25% to this country for them to sell their products to sell American products in their country, or we can't even sell them at all, and they get off scot-free selling everything to us? And you can do that with every country, and you know it's not fair. That's why we're having a problem with Canada and Mexico, NAFTA people, that it's not working out right because you're charging us to sell our products in your country, but we let you sell your products in ours. Now, it's not fair. And there's so much unfairness in life that it's rampant in all kinds of ways, socially and economically. It's not fair that people born with male attributes that decide to alter their body can compete against biological females. Of course that's not fair. Everybody knows it. But they don't want to admit it because they want equal rights for everybody. And you can't take that to its logical conclusion, because that means you can have someone in a wheelchair that wants to be a fireman, and you damn well better let me be a fireman. And it's like, well, we can't just take you off the truck in a wheelchair and let you roll around with a hose. It's just not practical. I'm sorry, but there's limitations to what you can do. And there's limitations to everybody. If I wasn't limited to what I could do, I would volunteer to work in some clean room for Intel and make chips. And I would have no idea what to do. But it's like, well, just because I'm stupid doesn't mean you shouldn't hire me and pay me a lot of money. So the whole idea of parity and equity is a ridiculous thing, and we all know why, and I'll go into that maybe in another diatribe. But let's go back to tariffs. Now, Canada and Mexico are having a cow because they don't want Americans to send their products into their country because it might be a better product, and maybe the Mexican populace will buy their product, and it suddenly... So it's all about who makes what and who buys what. And my credo is let the free market take its course and let anyone buy anything they want to from wherever they want to. And if they buy a $20 toaster from China and it breaks in a couple months, then maybe they'll realize, hey, maybe I'll buy a higher quality toaster so it doesn't break down. People make their own choices. The economy ebbs and flows as people's, sentiments and buying habits change. Now, I will say to Nick, before I finish this, thank you for the dinner. I went to my most stalwart and loyal fan's house and had dinner with him and his wife, and it was very good, and we had a good conversation. And it's nice that you only have 1 or 2 subscribers, because then you can kind of get to know them. But aside from that, I learned some stuff, and it was kind of shocking, and I don't want to go too much into anybody's personal situation, but I learned that my friend Nick worked in a kind of a technical field, and he was an engineer, and when he told me how much he was making, I was shocked, because I realized that the way they're trying to make parity, he's not making, I don't want to say anything, but they're making it so that if you work at McDonald's, you can make as much money as an engineer. Let me put it to you that way. If they want McDonald's workers to make a living wage, which is not the reason that a teenager gets a job at McDonald's, but we won't go into that. It just raises the price of McDonald's to where nobody wants to go there anymore, especially since the quality's not any better and they're paying 3 times what they used to pay. So it's a very fine line and a fine balancing act that goes with trade and employment. Now, here's what's going to happen, and I'm sorry to tell you this. Orangey will use his leverage, and he will create tariffs, and the countries will buckle because they'll realize it's not fair, and they'll say, rather than you charging taxes on your imports from our country, we will not tax you and you will not tax us, and everything will be an even playing field. That's what they call it, which is fine. And Orangey says, okay, if they do not capitulate, then it will simply mean that people will buy more American products. But here's the caveat. Americans don't want to work for $15 an hour on an assembly line. They want $45 an hour. Because if a McDonald's worker makes $20 an hour in California, then why should an electrical engineer not make at least twice or more of that money based on their abilities? It stands to reason. So even if we buy American, it will mean we pay more. And then what will happen is most places will go into AI, and they will develop, and I think this will happen in the next 5 years, if not sooner, if we last that long as a viable civilization. that you will go to McDonald's and a human voice will come through the speaker and say, "Can I help you?" And you'll say, "I'll have 2 Big Macs, one with extra secret sauce, and I will have 2 fries, and I will have 2 Cokes, both with half ice." And a machine will collate that order very efficiently, much faster than human beings can do, because they will not only have the advantage of being a machine that listens to your instructions and does it correctly, but they will be able to anticipate the business. They will know it's this time of the day and I should have this ready to go and this ready to go and this ready to go. And they will whip out food and it will come out very efficiently through the drawer, and you will put your card in the slot and put your PIN number in there, and that will be that. And you will not see a human being in that particular establishment waiting on you. And that will happen everywhere. That will happen in auto industries. That will happen in chip making factories. So everyone will be unemployed. And how we have a world in which people can be happy without putting in the effort to make the environment for their happiness, which means you have to make money. In this day and age, you just can't say, "I want to be happy," and not earn anything, and "I want all my bills to be paid, and I want to live in a nice place." Not going to happen. So they're going to have to think about what they're going to do with that, but I just think it's kind of funny that Americans are painting themselves into a corner where people need more money to survive, but that only means more and more inflation, and it only means more and more making human labor obsolete. So we're doomed, and that's obvious. And since I was lucky enough that Nick brought me a reach-in freezer, which I've always wanted for my survival plans, and he asked me to comment on some of the D's ridiculous antics, I will do a coda. I mean, it's obvious. They're grasping at straws. They have no idea what to do. They want to be hip, thinking, that mentality will take over. Well, they tried it once, and it really didn't work. The only time it worked was when the hippies got into the scene in the mid-60s. They changed the culture. Before you know it, all these people are, have their hair long and are wearing Nehru jackets and all that crap because they want to be cool. Well, the D's want to be cool, so they think they're doing cool things, which to almost everybody, is cringe. And they do things like have skits where they're, we're going to fight. And then they show these lady congressmen, trying to throw punches and acting real tough. And it's ridiculous. And if they're not throwing air punches in a very effete way, they're standing on the Senate or congressional floor singing "We Shall Overcome" after Al gets censured. And that's a depressing song anyway. Why do they keep singing it? It's a depressing song. We shall overcome. Just the song alone says, no, you never will. So it was ridiculous. And then, of course, Al pulls the, "I grew up in segregation, and this is the same thing. Look at these Congress people just because I'm a person of color, they won't let me stand up and rant and rave and shake my cane at people. You know what? I'll do a whole new diatribe on how the D's on the left have used these straw men and these canards to insulate themselves from criticism. They do it through race, and they do it through just the fact that they're D's. Oh, Orangey can't come after us. It'll be warfare. It's dictatorship, tyranny. Well, you're a criminal. Well, I'm a D, and if he comes after me, I'll just say it's political persecution. So I'll do more on that later. It's an interesting subject. I'm sorry it was so boring, but I promised Nick I'd do a diatribe. And maybe I give you something to think about. If you go back in time, you see why things have gone bad. It's our own greed. And in the process, we made ourselves kind of stupid because now Americans can't even make most of the things that we want to, make through tariffs. Buy American, and we don't know how to make it anymore. So we'll see what happens. I think it'll be bad. But thanks, Nick, for the night out, and it was fun, and thanks for the freezer. Talk to you later. Bye.